Hey guys, and welcome to this edition of Scruff's Garage. So today's video, I'm adding some insulation to my garage doors. I have a detached shop, got some automotive projects that I'm working on, and it gets cold out here in the shop. I have a propane heater that I run, but I feel like I'm burning through propane at an alarming rate. So adding some insulation to the garage doors is just one of a few different things I'm doing to try to better insulate the shop to retain some heat during the winter time. So adding insulation to the garage doors. What I'm using is just the kit from Lowe's. Now if you look on YouTube, there are plenty of other videos on more involved DIY solutions to other methods of insulating your garage doors. And I'm not knocking those in any way. I'm sure they're probably more efficient at adding R value to the insulation on the garage doors. It's just more involved than I want it to be. Like I said, I've got some other car projects to get back to, so I was looking for a quick, simple solution. So I'm just sharing what I'm doing. If you want to do something even more involved, just know that there are some other options out there if you really want to get into this. But what I'm using is this kit, InsulFoam from Lowe's. It's pre-cut to some extent. Has some benefits there. So these panels, each pack comes with 8 panels, and I think I paid like $57 for the package. It's styrofoam and has facing on it. See if I can, I peeled back a piece of it. So it has kind of a facing on one side. It's kind of this plastic type material. Gives it a nice shiny finish. Actually, I really like it. You can see what was here before, and it's kind of yellow and dingy. So actually, I really like the finish a lot. I think it brightens up the garage. If you saw my other video, I added a bunch of LED lights, so I feel like it reflects the light pretty well. So from that perspective, I'm really happy with it. Like I said, each kit comes with 8 of these panels. They're 54 inches long, and let's see, they're 20¼ inches wide. So they're pre-cut to this height. So the panels run this way, which is pretty nice. When you compare the cost, this is maybe slightly more expensive than buying 4x8 sheets of foam board. But the benefit here is that at least in this dimension, it's pre-cut for you. That's pretty common for most garage doors. These panels are 20¼ inches. Of course, check yours. You could have something unique or different, but if that's what you have, that element is pretty nice. And then these panels are 54 inches long, so you'll have to cut them to whatever length that you need. At least on my garage door, this is a pretty standard 7 foot by 9 foot wide. These panels, at least as a nominal dimension, are 25¾ inches. And then this one, these inner ones are a little smaller. They're 21¼ inches. Though I will mention, when I cut these, I cut them a 1/16 of an inch shorter than those nominal sizes, and I found that that helps them fit into these panels a little bit easier. The other thing that they do for you, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, the back, so you have the shiny side, the other side, which is what will go against the door, is pre-cut, has some slices in it. And what that allows, you have to bend these panels a little bit to fit them into this pocket here. So having that pre-cut is what allows it to flex and bend a little bit. Now obviously this little scrap piece goes in really easy. Once it's a much larger piece, it doesn't want to bend as easily. So having it kind of pre-cut makes the installation go a little bit easier. The other important dimension is how thick this is. So they tell you it's 1¼ inch, and that's true to size. It measures 1¼ inch. Now my doors, what you see here is sort of a plastic overlay. Behind this, from what I can tell, is about a 1/2 inch of foam back behind it. It's either 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch. That I'm not, might be 1/4 inch. I've been able to leave that in place, and this fits in the pocket in front of it, and it fills the whole cavity very tightly, so it's a nice tight fitment here. I'm not using anything other than the sort of the tension press fit to retain these. They're not glued in place, they're not screwed, anything of that nature, and they are a nice tight fit. I've tested with the door open and closed. You would have to destroy this foam panel to get it back out. It's a nice fit. So, like I said, this is a pretty straightforward kit to use. I will show you a couple of little tips on how to get these to fit and go in a little easier, and also show you how I cut it. Again, pretty much it's just a razor blade, and this stuff cuts fairly easily. So I'll show you that, and then we'll put in a couple of pieces so you can see it go in. Okay, so I've got the panel laid out on the workbench. I'm going to cut the long sections, which I said are 25 3/4. And as I mentioned before, I've been marking these a 1/16 of an inch shorter. Just helps them go into the door a little bit easier. I use a straight edge to connect my marks. Then I use a box cutter to make a couple of passes. This blade doesn't go all the way through, even though it's a little easier to handle. And then this one goes deeper. There we go. And it leaves a fairly clean cut. The way I've been doing it, like I said, I need to go all the way across. I do both of my 25 3/4 cuts out of one piece, and that pretty much uses the whole panel. And then the two shorter pieces that are 21 1/4, I'll do 2 of those out of a panel. And then that will leave me with a piece of scrap that's got a decent size to it. Don't really have a plan for this at the moment, but I'm going to hang on to them. Maybe I can use them somewhere else as some insulation. There we go. So I got 2 panels cut. In case you're wondering how well would a hot knife work, I do have one of those, and I tried it early on when I was working on the best way to cut these. The hot knife does work. It's slower, and it creates a chemical smell, and it creates a wider cut, and it's not as straight of an edge. So my recommendation, just stick with a box cutter, razor blade kind of scenario. But a hot knife, I guess, could work. I just don't think it's as efficient. Okay, so I'll show you quickly how these get installed. Depending on your door, you may have these wind braces. So my doors have 2 wind braces, one here and one goes here. So I've already removed that. Those come off pretty easily. They're just sheet metal screws. So you can take those out so you can get access to this pocket. It's not an issue on the top or the bottom panels, but here in the middle, you will need to take that out. Okay, so for installing these panels, I'll show you a little trick. If I can zoom in, hopefully you can kind of see that. That is the profile of the top of this panel versus the profile of the bottom of that panel. So the upper panel kind of pushes upward. So you gain a little extra pocket of space in this panel versus the comparable bottom panel. So when we go to push this in, if you install it pushing up and then the bottom, it'll go in easier. So I'll show you that. Okay, so when we go to push this in, if you push it in from the bottom up and go into this groove first, gives you just a bit more space, and it will fold in, bend in just a little bit easier. There we go. So that panel goes in without too much trouble. If you try to do the bottom first, you lose just like 1/4 of an inch of space, and you have to buckle this insulation a bit more to get the top to tuck in. So give that a try if you're struggling to get these installed. There we go. And then the next step, we'll reinstall our wind brace. There we go. So that install is pretty easy. Like most things that you assemble, I would leave most of the screws not completely snug tight until you get them all in. That way everything lines up like you need it. And then go back and tighten from the center out. That way everything is nice and flush up against the door panel. There you go. So this is a really simple product to cut, easy to install. I think it'll make a nice difference. I'm really happy with the finish on the inside of it. Like I said, I think it reflects the light well. In the garage, gives a nice clean white kind of finish to it. So I think I'm going to be pretty happy with this. For the purposes of this video, I don't have any before and after testing to show you. I've got some air gaps around the edges of the doors, so I've got to address that as well. So check your weather stripping. I can feel air blowing around the door, so the insulation won't be but so effective until I address additional things like that as well. So I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. The other thing I'll mention, this whole thing only weighs a few pounds. I see that mentioned in the comments sometimes. They're like, oh, you're adding too much weight to your garage door. It's going to hurt the garage door motor, wear out the spring. Honestly, I don't think that's really a consideration. It only weighs a couple of pounds. I mean, always make sure your garage door is properly balanced, right? It should, if you open it halfway, without the motor hooked up, of course, if you open it halfway, it should stay where it's at. If it falls, you need to tighten the spring. If it shoots up, then you've got too much tension on it. If you've seen the other video I did on my Chamberlain wall mount garage door openers, before I installed those, I made sure my garage door was balanced with the spring. So from that perspective, no issue. Those garage door openers are way stronger. This is a relatively small door, so adding a couple of pounds in insulation, it won't ever even notice. So I hope that helps, but if you have any other questions, anything I can help with, let me know. I'll answer what I can. As always, thanks for tuning in to this edition of Scruff's Garage. I'll see you next time.